Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, our master of ceremony. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning. Morning to everyone, our esteemed panelists, okay, our distinguished attendees. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone for joining us today. We are happy together for the first forum in Johor on the title, discussion, transforming Johor in the new normal. So as we all know, Iskandar Malaysia is a leading development corridor with investment almost 300 billion, and it is a hotspot of opportunities. Opportunities. It is a place where it has vast potential. It has rich history, bangsa Johor, culture, and I think it has a very promising future. However, post-pandemic, we have to find a way to navigate through the complexity, okay, and through the challenges that I think every corridor, every developmental area in the region, as well as the world, would have to go through. So we are not sitting still, okay, we are not doing anything. We are doing now, today, this session, for us to help understand the current scenario and as well as um, understanding what the future holds for us. So with us today, we have our esteemed panelists, 7 of them. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for introducing them. But I will ask them to maybe introduce themselves and also state what area of domain or expertise that they will be talking today so that the audience have an expectation and can ask the right and proper question when we do the Q&A session. Okay? So with that, I'll pass my mic to Mr. Kiran to kick off his introduction and maybe one of two sentences to tell the audience what topic or area he will be focusing on. Please.
Thank you, Mohammed Shahid. Salamat Pagi and good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure for me to be speaking over here. My name is Kiran Kumar and I head the Biocon Malaysia operations in Johor. It's great to be part of this event, especially talking about what biotech or even healthcare can do and make a difference to the community around us. I've been here for the last 4.5 years, so much of a Johorian as I might call myself. So it's again to actually explain myself as what we are doing as an organization and what difference we can make into the future. It'll be a great pleasure to interact as well in terms of what opportunities we can actually do in the biotech and the healthcare space, specifically looking at technology and leveraging on that in the post-pandemic environment. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to everyone. Happy to be here as well. I am Shanti Jusnita from Telecom Malaysia. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. So Telecom has been a long-term partner to the government and state of Johor in terms of the investment on infrastructure and telecommunication. So I'm happy to be here today. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I will cover a bit more around talking about how the digital economy is one of the growth driver and in particularly in an ICT perspective. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ganesh Kumar Banga. I'm a Johorian, born in Johor 44 years ago to be exact. I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. I started my first tech business when I was 20 years old. It was a company called MOL, and then we grew it, listed it in Malaysia. I listed it in Malaysia when I was 20 years old. I'm the youngest CEO of a listed company in Malaysia, and then listed the company on the NASDAQ in 2014. Subsequently exited the business, started investing in commerce enablers, and I also acquired an Australian listed company that has the largest influencer marketing platform in Malaysia and actually Southeast Asia. And today I'll actually be talking about building tech giants in Malaysia or tech unicorns. People like to use the word unicorns. I think the word unicorn is a fad today because they don't make money. And in today's environment, you need to make money. So I use the word tech giants and how we can potentially build tech giants that will drive the digital economy or the new economy that can drive the new economy of Johor and Iskandar.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lee Ting Kiat. I am chairman of the MICCI, the Malaysia International Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Um, and I am also, that is a voluntary work on our end to promote Johor to be a good business place to be in for you guys to invest, because the MICCI is probably the oldest chamber in whole of Malaysia. It was formed since 1837. And its membership, it's spanned from public listed companies to local companies to SMEs, and also foreign and local entities as well. So that is the first hat that I'm wearing, and this is the reason I'm here for today. And yes, I will be talking about opportunities that you can see based on all the news that you have read so far. You know what has been developed in Johor, in particular to the Iskandar Malaysia development corridor here. And of course, I'm wearing the other hat as well. I am a lawyer by profession. My office is just in the next building here within the same plot of land. So I'm in Menara Landmark. So I hope to infuse some of the legal aspects, every now and then, that could be. The talk is principally revolving around the business opportunities. How do you do business in the new normal? New normal means when there's a crisis, and after the crisis, then way of doing things are very different now compared to many, many years ago. So this is where I would say, and there are also considerations on what are the growth driver. Next to me, Tan Sri Cik Khalib, I'm sure he can expand what growth drivers are, because he's one of the key persons, the movers and shakers of Johor here as well, because of his over here. So over to you, Tan Sri. Thank you. Yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Morning. My name is Cik Khalib, Group MD of MMC. Basically, the topic that I would like to share with the audience today in terms of establishing Malaysia and especially Johor as a regional distribution hub. You know that COVID, the restricted in terms of movement, has taught us a lot of lessons. Lesson that I think all of us must learn, that because the new normal in terms of the world order has changed. Because again, when people talk about the supply chain disruption, then this new thing, the requirement for regional distribution center, become more and more important. And Malaysia, Johor in particular, because our strategic geographical, what so-called location, because again, all ships have to pass through Johor, whether you like it or not. All ships that goes to China must pass through Johor. So Malaysia would be the best place in terms of regional distribution center. That's what Singapore has been capitalizing on in the past. And this industry, if we can do it well, no one can compete with us. We, in terms of manufacturing, we have competition from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Cambodia, because of they have low-cost labor. But when it comes to regional distribution center, Thailand cannot compete with us because they don't have the advantage of the location. Myanmar cannot so-called compete with us. Vietnam cannot compete with us. But we must get our act together. We must be able to facilitate and make ease of doing business for these people to relocate themselves to make Malaysia as a regional distribution center. I think I'm very bullish about this. I think because we have the best infrastructure in this region, we should capitalize on that. So that is an area that I will basically be expanding during our discussion later on. And again, the second one is this. We just completed the construction of the Sungai Pulai Bridge. This is another new normal for Johor. Before, sorry for those people who have invested in Iskandar region, I can tell you, if I'm a Johorian today, today what I will do is to go and look for land in Pontian area. Because from Tuas to Pontian, now it's going to be only 15 minutes. Right? It's only 15 minutes. So whoever owns land in Pontian, hold on to it. I think you're going to make a fortune.
Thank you, I think Cik Khalid. Yeah, a very good morning. I think thank you for the invitation to speak here. I believe today's forum is very interesting. I think especially on post-recovery from the economic the slowdown last year and so forth. So I'm Mrs. Gan Lau Mei Leong. I am the head of economic and investment under Iskandar Regional Development Authority, or ILDA. So what does ILDA do? ILDA do the planning, promoting, and facilitating investment into Iskandar Malaysia. So today, I will share with you what are the details as the Honorable Yang Amat Berhormat Menteri Besar have actually shared just now, what are the numbers that come in. And then from there, you can see some of the opportunities and what are the new, I think some of you have mentioned the new normal, what are the new business opportunity. And actually, I concur with Tan Sri Sheikh Khalid. I think there is opportunity over the west side of Iskandar Malaysia, but this is something that we can discuss later on. Yeah, thank you.
Assalamualaikum, very good morning. Salam Maju Johor, Salam Malaysia Madani. Mazlan is my name. I'm the executive chairman of a group of company, namely Reshut Ventures Berhad, Qmis, Penpay, more than 15 companies under our group. So what I intend to do today is basically to share the thought, what we want to build for the Johor Maju. There is none other but banking and finance, because having served more than 20 over years with Bank Negara Malaysia, with commercial bank exposed on onshore and offshore, this is where I feel small effort that I can make sure Johor will really become the next Estonia. Johor will become the next Estonia, fully digitized. Yes, we can, because I'm a Bangsa Johor. I was born in Mersing. So today I'll come back home to make sure to see Johor will become the next Estonia. So my contact setting is banking and finance, which is I know everybody is looking for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Haji Mazlan. So we're looking forward, for a very, very insightful and very, I would say, comprehensive input based on the topic that our esteemed panelists has mentioned. If you notice, there are 7 panelists. Okay? 7 panelists. 7 is a very auspicious number. You know, the 7 samurai, you know, always defending Johor. You know, Johor could be the 7th heaven, you know. So the 7 sages of Greece, all the wise men of Greece, they call it the 7 stages. So with that, I open the forum, beginning with Mr. Kiran to present his, his content. Please, welcome.
Thanks again. So let me just take a couple of minutes to really look at what we have done as a difference. And when I said I'm going to talk about healthcare and biotechnology, I think there's been some interest. I'm not too sure whether the team over here knows what we have done as a difference to the economy of Malaysia, Johor, and also to the world. How many of us know that Johor is actually supplying over 60% of healthcare needs for insulin patients in Malaysia? Which means that 60% of the insulin patients in Malaysia depend upon a Johor company on Johor for using their insulin needs. So that's being able to provide critical healthcare needs for patients across Malaysia. And that number is actually, if you were to look at the US patients. So what we are doing over here is not only supplying to Malaysia, but also to the US. Nearly about 20% of patients combined together in US and Europe are dependent upon a Johor company again for their daily insulin needs. That's the difference we can actually make from a company out of Johor and the technology which we bring across to the table. Now, what we did during the pandemic was our ability to actually make it possible by trying to improve our practices and building in resilience. with the team members to be able to make that difference to the patients, not only in Malaysia, but across the world. So what are we looking at as opportunities? I think the first and foremost thing is about technology. The way technology is around us, digitization, automation, and robotics, in our manufacturing practices, I think that's an ecosystem we can actually make a huge difference in the way we work. I think all of the panelists over here would agree with me in terms of the talent or the people which we're trying to see across Malaysia today. It is important that we make jobs much more simpler, scalable, and depend upon AI or probably digitization to make it much more things possible. So the ability is to actually do a lot more in a lot lesser time. If you look at our facilities, I think automation has taken over the way we do things. People need to do things much more simpler, again, getting more, I would say, scalable as well. So that's going to be the focus of automation in the future, about manufacturing, about getting onto biotechnology. We can actually make a huge difference to healthcare, and the purpose is to actually bring about transformation to patients. It is said that by 2030, Malaysian population will actually get into a more aging population. So it's important for us to make ourselves more healthy and also have the necessary healthcare facilities for us. And I'm definitely sure that whatever investments and the focus which we have on healthcare as Malaysia, as Johor, we can actually make that huge difference to all of us. Now again, getting back to what we can do in healthcare, it's not just about manufacturing products. It's more by trying to say how we can actually bring in the holistic treatment to patients across the world. Johor can actually be a very good healthcare destination for the world. We have a high-cost neighbor around us. It's important for us to see how we can actually build in a more hospital industry around Johor, to see how we can actually attract more treatment to patients, and that's going to be a huge difference as well. And last but not the least is about sustainability. We talk a lot about how we are actually doing business, what is our main core focus, how we are looking at growing our revenues and probably our people and things like that. But I think the most important thing for all of us to understand is how we can actually make the business grow, not only in the next 3 to 4 years, but beyond that, over the next 20 years for the future generations to come. And I think Johor, if you were to look at it, has been making a huge difference. We actually see some lanes which are actually cycle-only lanes, which is actually coming up. And I think that's where we can actually build in a more sustainable environment around us. And I think all of us together can make a huge difference, not only in the way we do our business, but making it more sustainable, making it more looking at to the future for the generations to come, and see how we are building this together as we move along. So that's going to be the focus for all of us. And I think Ganesh did mention about how we actually brought about trying to look at the ecosystem of startups. It's not about today, it's about 2014 is when he actually said he took the company public. So there is a lot of history how we can actually bring in diversity as well. So that's going to be the opportunity, future opportunity of trying to see how we can actually build in a good startup ecosystem within Malaysia, within Johor, so that we can actually bring in a lot more industries, a lot more focus in the way we're trying to build things. So I would still I look at interacting with you more as we speak on this session, but I think the key focus would be technology, looking at industries we can actually make it more, I would say, more resilient into the future, and leveraging on diversity and sustainability so that we make the businesses more stronger as we move along this journey. Thank you.
Shanti?
Thank you. So as we have observed, and I guess increasingly in the pandemic and post the pandemic, the contribution of the digital economy to GDP growth has been increasing significantly. I think even in the last data in 2020, the contribution is at 22.4%, and that has been growing 10% year on year. And I think this morning when we heard about Maju Johor, the sixth thrust, right, it's imperative that the digital aspirations support or goes along the lines of implementing that blueprint. So what are the drivers basically to digital economy? And I think this morning we were, we had been shared in terms of how Johor is prime and all of that. So it's a whole ecosystem, right, of making sure this can happen, from policy to infrastructure to skills and talent. But it is both to address in terms of the supply and demand. So if we look at demand first from a consumer's perspective, Malaysians are generally very technically savvy people, right? So we have, in terms of, we talk about our mobile penetration is about 139% in Johor, 140% nationally, right? 98% of people have smartphones. And if you look at Johor in specific, and JB has a median age of 31. So it's a very young population, right? And 70% are actually working adults. I think Johor has one of the lowest compared to the other states in median with regards to unemployment, working adults. So in terms of the demand to consume what the economy can power from a digital perspective, it is very there. Okay. Secondly, and we come to infrastructure, right? Probably in an area there's always the question on infrastructure with Telecom Malaysia and all of that. So in terms of infrastructure, our investments from either fiber optics or data center investments had always been strong in Johor. So in terms of our aspiration and aligned with the Jendela initiatives by MCMC, we are going to reach about 1 million premise passed of high-speed broadband in 2025. And today, in terms of broadband penetration, fairly larger compared to the national average, as well as in SMEs as well. So these are the things that if you sum up, Johor is very prime, right? We have one of our biggest data centers is in Johor as well. And it's almost full capacity as well. So everything, all the signs are looking good from that demand and supply perspective, right? And in terms of what's also important to kind of boost all of this is digital talents, upskilling, and all of that. So what's also good is that there is two school of thoughts always. There's always thoughts to say there's a lot of grants and funds, right? Especially when we talk about micro SMEs. And micro and small businesses actually make 99% of businesses in Asia. Yeah, the medium size is actually just 1%. So the question is as well, I guess something to ask ourselves is with regards to assistance towards being able to, one is access the technology, but having the talents and skill sets to be able to capitalize on the technology into and digitalize businesses. We have those opportunities. I mean, I think we have opportunities to do more, right? And that includes thinking in, I think Dr. Mazlan talked about banking and finance, right? I mean, we need to think microfinancing probably, yeah, not grants that require 20 stacks of audit papers, those kind of, I think, push and drive is required. But coming back to location as well, so with regards to infrastructure, where we are, where Johor is very perfect. We are well connected from either all our telecommunications infrastructure to be the bridge to serve the Indo-China northern countries, Singapore, and then even going towards Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Japan. Right? Our cable landing station is also here in Johor in Mersing. So all of this, I think, sums up a very great position. So the opportunity is really, I do believe this digital economy, and it's really just powering up the local businesses as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so let me talk a bit about building tech industries or building tech giants in Johor. So about 50 years ago, 3 Johorians, actually all of them are in this room, myself, Tuanji Salikon and Tuanji Ramli at the back of the room, started a company called MSC Cyberport. Because some of you know the building that we converted from Menara Sarawak, we made it Johorian again and called it Menara MSC Cyberport. And the whole intention of doing that really was because we saw a potential in really, there was an arbitrage opportunity because Johor is low cost and Singapore is high cost. There were so many tech companies or startups in Singapore until today. In fact, now it's the arbitrage opportunity has reached a new level, right? And that we thought that, hey, there's an arbitrage opportunity to set up a tech hub in Johor, set up call centers, etc. Because doing that call centers, data centers, Johor, because the cost in Singapore was too expensive. Yesterday, I had dinner with an old friend in Singapore yesterday. He told me, 15 years ago, this guy started talking about data centers in Johor. Now, every Singapore company, Keppel, whether Keppel, whether Ascendas, is all looking at setting up data centers in Johor. We actually thought of that 15 years ago. A friend of mine reminded me of that night. And so there's a lot of potential. I think we really haven't even scratched the surface. I don't think data centers is the data centers is just a start. Why do I say it's a start? Why are data centers locating in Johor today? Data centers are locating in Johor because of 2 or 3 reasons. One is we have the telco infrastructure. Two is we have relatively reasonable cost of land compared to Singapore. And third really is we have got also relatively reasonable, I won't use the word cheap here, cost of electricity, right? So a lot of these companies really set up data centers here because of these 3 reasons. But we shouldn't just look why they're setting up here, but we should look at how we can benefit from it, right? And therein lies the challenge. A lot of these data centers are actually just black boxes, right? They they consume our power, they consume our land, but do they really hire a lot of our employees, right? Maybe not as much as they should compared to their investments, right? And so therein lies. But then if you look at another type of investments that Penang, our I will use the word competitor or name or a bit competitive state like Penang, right? Now Penang has attracted a different type of industry, the E&E industry, the microelectronic industry, semiconductor industry. HP, Intel all moved to Penang 30 years ago. A lot of us don't realize, but when they moved to Penang, they hired Penang staff, they trained the talent there, and because of that, the talent in Penang is top grade when it comes to semiconductor. And by virtue, semiconductor and ICT are quite close together. It's actually grown the semiconductor industry tremendously there. Now, what Penang has that we don't have is Penang has actually built a local cluster of tech giants that have been born in Penang. Let me give you a few examples. There's a company called Pentamaster, the couple of billion-dollar company actually in Penang, and they've created a regional hub. Now, why is Pentamaster? Why was Pentamaster born in Penang? It's because they had that talent. Somebody from Intel or HP actually met the founder, actually left Intel and HP and started Pentamaster, right? And then there's another company now called Skychip. They just started 3-4 years ago. It's a 3-4-year-old company. Started in Penang. Again, a guy from Intel left and started Skychip. And today is a multi-billion-dollar company as well. Every tech fund in the world, or in Southeast Asia at least, wants to invest in Skychip. The guy can actually choose his investors today. And why Penang has that is because of 2 reasons. One is they have the talent. They brought in industry that generates talent, and they also created then that cluster of industry that supports each other. And that's what we need here in Johor. We need a cluster of local industry that will actually support each other, and we need to groom this industry. And we really, to be honest, we really don't have that. If you go to MDEC, I'm quite close to the people in MDEC. They have a GAIN program that wants to grow tech giants. They go to Penang quite often, and they groom tech giants there. Whenever they go there, there are 20 to 30 companies that actually join their program. I actually introduced MSC Cyberport to the guy who runs it, my good friend Gopi, about 3 months ago to Haji Ramli, right? And I asked him, how many tech giants, how many GAIN companies do you have in Johor? Guess what the answer was? None. Right? So that's what we actually need to groom. It's not just the startups, we need to groom the tech giants. And why do we need to groom the tech giants? Because by grooming the tech giants, they will build the next generation of startups. Tech giants that train the employees, these employees then will start. That's how we build a startup ecosystem. It's not the hype, it's the talent. And talent is not just by putting people through university. Talent is done through practice. They actually need to go through that cycle of building a company from seed, startup, to grow, to unicorn, giant. And that's what actually we need. to encourage there, and we have to work together to get there. One of the other challenges that I see among our culture here is sometimes we are quite competitive, that we don't help each other here in Johor. That's very different in Penang, for example, right? We have to help each other, to groom each other, to support each other, really to take our local industry giants and really take them to the next level. Now, what's our competitive advantage here? A lot of people say, hey, you can build a startup anywhere in the world, right? You don't have to build it in Johor, you can build it anywhere. That's true. I invested in a company in Siawan about years ago. Billion ringgit company that is now $500 million company. Right? They're one of the biggest tech employees. They are the biggest tech employee in Siawan. They hire 200 people in Siawan. So you can start up a tech company in Siawan. Why? Right? The real reason is because we are close to Singapore. Now you may ask, what's the big deal of Singapore? Singapore has become a capital hub of the world. Money from China, Jack Ma's money or family office is in Singapore. Everybody from Hong Kong has a family office in Singapore. Now everybody from India is setting up a family office in Singapore. So there are billions, if not trillions of dollars in Singapore today. And a percentage of that is investing into tech. There's so many billion-dollar funds that invest into tech in Singapore. And when these VCs actually invest into tech, they prefer to invest in companies that are close to them so they can monitor them, right? And therein lies the opportunity. Singapore is too expensive to start a startup. The market in Singapore is too small to grow a startup. But the market of Malaysia, our cost here is just at the right level today. And of course, with the current political environment, which is very friendly between Singapore and Malaysia, I was actually with a VC yesterday that runs a $1 billion fund, and he's actually looking at investing in Malaysia. But where does he go to? Guess where he went to look into investments? He flew to Penang a couple of months ago. Right? Not take the 1 hour drive down to Johor. He actually flew to Penang. So we need to encourage this. We need to help ourselves. We need to build the local talent ecosystem. We need to build our local tech giants, and we need to support each other to get there. We need to have events. We need to have clusters. We need to build that clusters, right? And that was what the vision that we actually wanted to start 15 years ago. Maybe it's a bit too early then, but maybe now is the right time with the current capital environment. At that time when we actually invite tech companies from Singapore, they were very pessimistic on Johor. And the reason why they were pessimistic really is because I still remember the issue they say, is Johor safe or not? Right? Now, why Johor is not safe? Johor is not safe because every day you see a newspaper article saying somebody lost something or got robbed in Johor, right, at that time. And that was actually there was no political will from the Singapore side to promote Johor. But I believe today there's no choice. They do have to promote Johor because they're just becoming too expensive. You ask any Singaporean, even any expat in Singapore, how's it like living in Singapore? Yesterday I was with a guy from Sri Lanka who works for Ninja Van. He says, oh my God, I had to call a vet for my cat. It cost me $6,000. Right? You say, sure, just let the animal die. Right? So it's such a high cost place. So they have no choice. They have to work with us. All we have to do is make sure we have the talent, work together, and make sure we benefit from this global trend and really kind of grow and help each other to get there.
Somebody turn this on? Okay, it's on now. Actually, I prepared some slides on this, but of course, I've been given, I think every one of us has been given 8 minutes, and I'm not going to put on the slides. I think it's better to look at all the handsome and pretty faces over here, and then concentrate on some of the speakers as well. So actually, what I want to say is really very much a follow-through of what Ganesh has mentioned to us. I think everybody knows what new normal is, so I'm not going to go into the new normal. The whole session 1 is all about transforming Johor in the new normal. and what are the new growth drivers, and what are the new opportunities over here. So what I'm going to do is that, it cuts across, because I think what Ganesh said is really very important, and it's very, very, very true. Why Penang? Why not Johor? And why we're just next to Singapore? And then traditionally, many, many years ago, 15 or 16 years ago, I think everybody was trying to see that this is a competing environment between Singapore and Malaysia. But right now, what you see is what I call as a symbiotic relationship between Malaysia and Singapore, because we really now are depending on each other for everybody in this region to grow. So this is the place, and I think there's plenty of opportunities that we need to look at. Then the next thing is, are we ready? Are we ready to accept all this influx of things that are going to come in from Singapore and beyond? When we say Singapore, it is not really just Singapore. When we say Singapore, it is actually they are the gateway from. I mean, it's like everybody is coming into Singapore, as to set up their financial hub, to set up their business regional centers, and so on. So that is where things are getting very, very expensive over there, and Johor has all the things that they need, the necessary ingredients. Our Honorable Chief Minister has also mentioned that, and has taken a very, very personal interest in trying to make sure that the connectivity is there, even on land itself, so nobody needs to fly, just need to take across the causeway. So, and we have already probably the most successful economic region, in the whole of Peninsular Malaysia, or even in Malaysia. We have the Iskandar Malaysia, which is spanning across at 2,300 square kilometers. I think there are talks also saying that it's double that amount, but 2,300 is good enough for all of us, for these 6 zones, economic zones that are already been set up. So tap on those opportunities, and you will see that we already have the major infrastructures all in place. I think everybody knows where those zones are. There's Zone A, which is the JB City Centre. There's Zone B, which is the Iskandar Putri, formerly known as Sejaya. There's Zone C, which is the Western Gate. Western Gate, which means that the PTP side, and of course you have the Zone D, which is the Pasir Gudang area. You have Zone E, which is the Senai and Skudai area, and you have Zone F now, which is Sedena. So we've got all the six economic corridor, economic regions. The business for businesses to grow. Yeah, all right. And then a little bit of observation of what has already been announced also about investment in Malaysia. And I want to say this because I think then we can make a comparison between investment in Johor vis-a-vis investment in Malaysia. Now, the total approved investment in Malaysia is in 2022. It's 264.6 billion. And there is a small, everybody knows this data, actually, it's all reported. But what I'm going to do is a small analysis of this data. So out of this, the FDI is 61.7%, okay? And the domestic direct investment is about 38.3. Let's, for argument's sake, is 60-40. It's easy for people to know. So FDI is 60%, DDIs are 40%. So this is the whole of Malaysia, and China, of course, topped the list of being the most foreign direct investment in Malaysia. And then in Johor itself, there are also figures. I think everybody is talking about 70.6 billion now. 70.6 billion is all the total approved investment in Johor. All right. Now, okay, what is this 70.6 billion? This is where we are looking at now. 70.6 billion. The FDI amounted to 83%, and the DDI amounted only to 16.7%. So are we missing something here in Johor? Where is the opportunity? 60-40 in the whole of Malaysia. We have 85 and 15 Johor. So we must do something right about the domestic. This is where Ganesh point about local talent. If we don't have all this basic human capital that Johor is trying to grow, how are you going to try and nurture and try and grow a domestic industry in readiness to be able to support, the foreign investment? So I think that part of it is very important, that we need to know and concentrate a little bit on the DDI. This is also echoed by our president in MICCI, Ms. Kristinati. She's the president on the nationwide. I'm just the chairman on the southern side. So we are also saying that other than FDIs, we also have DDIs to look at. That's why in our organization, in our Chamber of Commerce, it is for everybody. who has a business in Malaysia and Johor particularly, come and see us, and then this is where we can try and promote, because we have engagements with all the statutory bodies, the government officers, Invest Johor, and then we also have intra networking and all that. So not really hard selling over here, but I mean we can do something for Johor as a whole. Now, then the other thing is, okay, growth drivers. I'll leave this to my subsequent speakers later, but all I need to say is we also need to know what are the new growth drivers. Now, the topic here says about new growth drivers. To me, I think the growth drivers has always been there. The growth drivers basically revolves around our infrastructure. It has always been there. We just are looking at how to enhance it. I think from the MMC perspective, they have already got two ports. One, which is on the west side, which is PTP. It's very well known in the world. And then you have the east side, which is the Johor port. And of course, there's also Tanjung Langsat. These are all the ports, where it's where we connect to the outside world. And of course, they also have the Senai International Airport, which of course is now an international airport. We're going to create more and more flights, out of Malaysia. So it's the infra is one of the key growth drivers that we're looking at. Then we have to have workforce to attract talents. Malaysia is doing its best. Of course, we have the competition from the Singapore in the sense that we are kind of like a training ground for the Singapore businesses over there. But we're doing our best in the sense that, look, the Employment Act has already been amended, to say that, try and put everybody in the Employment Act. You don't pay people more than 4,000, you pay overtime. So you can see there's a spike in all this pay and so on. That is the other thing that I think we are doing what we can, in trying to encourage the second growth driver, which is, workforce and also the skilled personnel. Of course, we also do something about foreign workers, and good administration is the other one. Education, this was again echoed by the Yang Amat Berhormat Menteri Besar, saying that we've got all the necessary infrastructure. We've got the local and also the foreign-based universities and international schools. So we kind of like have to enhance some of this, because one of the things that investors come to Johor will ask, where are my kids going to go to school? So this is the other point that we have to look at. And of course, digitalization is, everybody has gone through the lesson, so everybody needs to know that they have to try and evolve in so far as their businesses are concerned. So suddenly things like Zoom, things like Microsoft Teams and Google Meet, all this has become a norm in our work, you see. So challenges, I think this is where it's very, very obvious in Johor because of the brain drain. I think in one of the accounting firms study, the attrition rate of people leaving, for another job elsewhere is 50%, 50, a year. So that is very, very heavy. That is very serious. Sometimes you see professionals, even not just audit firms, even lawyers, we have to double up, in doing the work that other juniors can do, but they are not doing. So they start asking for working from home. It's a new norm again, so we have to do that. We have no choice, because we have to kind of like adapt to all this, and don't be too bossy to say, you stay in the office, you work in the office, yeah, I'm back and call, there is no such thing anymore. Work from home, yes, no problem at all, go ahead. Just make sure you have your connections on, that's all. So these are what we can look at. New opportunities, of course, everybody talks about data center. I think Ganesh also made a very, he put it very mildly to say that, data centers, very energy consuming, how many people are we actually getting to work, and compared to E&E industry. So yes, we have three, that is coming up. One is in Sedana, one is in Senai, the one which is YTL, and then you have the Nusa Jaya Tech Park. So you've got three, and then where all data centers are setting up, their businesses over there. But is that all that we're looking at? Because most of the investment that you see in Malaysia and in Johor, they are all actually coming around. The figures are coming in because of data centers. The figures are not coming in from other industry. What about others? I think we have solar related. Anything about green sells. Anything about ESG sells nowadays. So these are all opportunities that you can look at. I think we also need to look at that bit, about energy and also about solar panels. I think Johor has got a few in Senai area and so on. And then we've got things like, I think I can also highlight one of the local ones, Handal Indah electric vehicle, they are also setting up something about electric vehicles. They're manufacturing their own electric vehicles and in their operations here in Johor. And the other thing is that medical devices, I think somebody mentioned about 60%, one of my fellow speakers, 60%. We are all probably know that we are all referring to Insulet, who's doing the medical devices. So some of this, and on a lighter note, actually, I think one part of it is that we've got so many golf courses in Johor. I think that tourism part of it, we can try and look at something to promote about golf tourism, because I think that part of it is, we've got like 20 over golf courses in Johor. I think if other countries like Vietnam, Thailand, or even Indonesia can promote golf tourism, we've got this kind of weather that is all year round that you can play. I think that's also another industry, a sub branch of tourism. But tourism is something, yes, definitely we can look at. So I think if you stop my time, basically I was running about 200 kilometers an hour, trying to do all this presentation in 8 minutes. So it's all done now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you again for giving me this opportunity to share with you what I think Johor can start looking at. And of course, the first one that I have mentioned just now is the Regional Distribution Center. Because of COVID, right, because of the MCO, the world system of logistic and supply chain arrangement has changed tremendously. Before, everybody talked about globalization. But if you ask people about globalization today, people will say globalization is dead. No more globalization. Now is regionalization because of the supply chain punya disruption. So people have to relook the way they do their supply chain. So that's why people are setting up their operation based on region. So again, for this region, Malaysia can take the advantage of our strategic. We can be the regional distribution hub for this region. For example, I don't know whether you know, in Malaysia now, we managed to attract one, for example, like Volkswagen. They have their regional distribution center for spare parts in PTP, basically supplying all spare parts to 22 countries in the world. This region, including Australia and New Zealand. Then we have BMW Regional Distribution Center. More and more is coming. And again, I had a dinner last night with someone from Singapore. So he was telling me that now Singapore is chasing away all these regional distribution centers out of Singapore. Maybe because of Singapore have better use for the land, but this is where we should seize that opportunity. Because the agreement for the lease of land that they had entered into with Jurong, was about 30 years ago. This is the time when these leases that was so-called that were signed 30 years ago coming to end. And what I was made to understand by this guy, Singapore is not renewing these leases anymore. So they have to get out. So for them, it's either to go to Malaysia, to go to Vietnam, to go to Thailand. But Malaysia have the advantage of one, good infrastructure, and two, location. So I think this is where Johor, please seize the opportunity. And again, I have been telling Yang Berhormat Cik Besar, please treat Singapore as our friend, not our enemy. We have to work together with Singapore. This so-called feeling that this Singapore is our enemy, we should fight with them. I think, again, under new world, I think we should change that perception, should see them and complement each other. And that is important. That mindset has to be put correct now. And we have to work together. Because if you look at neighboring countries where you have more developed countries, and developing country, there's always this so-called, they are prospering each other. And we should do that in Johor. That's number one. So regional distribution center, I see huge potential for Johor. In fact, when I spoke to few of these industries that came to Johor, I said, never mind, you can, because one of the reasons why some of these companies refused to relocate to Malaysia before was because of if they relocate to Johor, those senior personnel in Johor have to move to Johor, in Singapore. I said, never mind, don't do that. Your senior management can remain in Singapore. You have your operation in Johor. Nothing wrong with that. But what is important is that we can create the economic activity in Johor. Because regional distribution center, do you know what is the spillover of regional distribution center? Packaging, transport, insurance, banking, so many. That's why Singapore was very happy to have this regional distribution center in the past. So that's number one. Number two, tourism. If you look at Johor, I don't think even Johorians see Johor as a tourism center. People know Kelantan, people go to Terengganu for holiday, people go to Kuantan for holiday. I'm going to state to you the obvious. I think not many Johorians so-called acknowledge this, but I'm telling you the obvious. Do you know that you are the only state that have Straits of Malacca and South China Sea? The only state in Malaysia that have South China Sea and Straits of Malacca. How many of you acknowledge that? Tak ada kan? You never thought that we have that. So you have that advantage. Because of, that's why, how many people have started to develop the South China Sea punya so-called sea resort, as well as the Straits of Malacca? How many people know Johor as a tourist center? None. Not many. We all know Kuantan, we all know Malacca. I don't know again. I'm not a Johorian. But what can Malacca offer that Johor cannot offer? Johor can offer more than what Malacca can offer. Why people drive all the way from Singapore to Malacca? Why? Johor is so close by. Again, that's why I think, in my opinion, the Pontian Kukup area is a golden opportunity for Johor to develop the so-called a new tourism center. If you ask me, if I'm from KL, to go to Desaru, sorry, no offense to people who have invested in Desaru, please, to drive from JB to Desaru, quite a long distance, you know. But to drive from Singapore to Kukup and Pontian, because of the bridge, so short, so the distance is so short now. So you should develop Pontian and Kukup area as a new distribution, a new so-called tourist center. Because again, please don't forget Desarula, they have invested a lot of money. So if that money that has been invested in Desaru are now being invested in Pontian and Kukup, I think Pontian and Kukup will basically develop faster. It's so close, right? From, like I said, from Tuas to Pontian now, 15 minutes. To Kukup, probably 20 minutes. Kukup has nice seafood area, right? So again, tourism, not many people have taken Johor seriously as a tourist center. No one. And people know Langkawi, people know so-called even like I said, Melaka. But why not Johor? Number three. There's a lot more, but I think I will share with you only three because of the constraint of time. The third one is this. The Malaysian government have recently announced the so-called approval for people for Malaysia to export green energy outside Malaysia. And we know Singapore requires a lot of green energy. right? And where would be the best place to export green energy, if not the next country, right? Which is close by, which is Johor. Johor can be the center for green energy to export to Singapore. So you just what? 15 kilometers away. To do that, there's a lot of opportunity for Johor to consider renewable energy. And the obvious one is solar energy. And again, Johor have plenty of land for you to set up solar farm. So you can export. I think Singapore requires something like what, 3 gigawatt of solar green energy. So if they require the side, 3 gigawatt green energy is huge. I was made to understand, we bid it for LSSS in Malaysia. The rate that you can get in Malaysia is 20 cents, the highest. Yeah, that is the average. The last LSS in Malaysia is 20 cents. Malaysians are good at this. We like to kill each other. No problem. We are so good, efficient. When killing each other, we are so good. You know what Singapore is paying now? 18 Singapore cents. Can you imagine how much money you can make? Again, I leave it to you. These are the 3 areas. I can share a lot more, but I think 3 cukup lah. And kalau I bagi tahu semua, I couldn't make money pula. Then no business for us. So at least leave some business for us to do lah. Yeah, thank you so much.
A very good morning again. Yes, so I think most of the panelists have actually shared many things that I want to say. But today I will just give you some numbers. So I have some slides so that you can see some of the numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, the role of Iskandar Malaysia is actually to drive economic growth. So we have investment numbers. We have investment targets. So up to the latest number that we have in March, actually, the cumulative investment that Iskandar Malaysia have attracted around 388 billion worth of investment, of which around 450, I would say 234 billion has been realized on the ground. So I think most analysts want to know what is being spent on the ground and so forth. So of the number, 58% are domestic investment. So you realize, I think my colleague, Mr. Lee, have mentioned the national MIDA numbers. So MIDA number is a little bit different because when we pick up this number, we also cover some of the investment in residential property. And I think among us, when people ask, what are the promoted industry that Iskandar Malaysia is looking at? Even in our comprehensive development plan, ILDA or Iskandar Malaysia focus on the 6 services sector and 3 manufacturing sector. And the 6 services sector includes logistics, tourism, healthcare, education, finance, and creative. And these are the areas that we want to bring more investment. But we shouldn't forget the manufacturing sector because we know Penang is the, I would say, center of excellence for E&E. To a certain extent, Selangor. But actually, Johor have a very strong base of E&E companies itself. So maybe among the members of MICCI, I'm sure there will be a number. So it is actually from this base that we can actually explore what are the other opportunities that can bring new investment into Johor itself. So if you look at the slide on the left-hand side, we have all the promoted sectors, but we also have other sectors which includes property. So property is not, or residential development or property development is not a sector that we encourage. But we understand that the market confidence when Iskandar Malaysia was launched actually bring in very big, property players into Johor. And I think all the names from Klang Valley is already in Iskandar Malaysia. But what the trend that we like is, I think, Johor, maybe what many people know is, you have very good industrial park. So, and what we like the trend is from mere residential property, we are seeing more investment in the industrial park. And industrial park players is where they also work together to attract FDI and BDI into Malaysia. So I also member. Okay. And maybe I'm not sure they are here. And if I think only last month, one of the industrial park AME, they have 2 listed vehicle. They won the gold prize in YAPC, I think excellent award over in US. That is according to them, this is the Oscar of of the property sector for industrial park, and it is located, I think, in the Senai Airport City area, next to in Cekale area. Yes. So these are actually branded. And many years ago, when I first come down to Johor to work, I went to, I think, Nusa Cemerlang. And I was actually very impressed when you compare the facilities offered there, with service, Selangor, Highcom, those days in Shah Alam. Because the quality, because we are next to Singapore. So that's why if you look at my top foreign investment, yes, China is number 1. Maybe 5, 6 years ago, it is Singapore. And all the while, I think for the past many, many years, Singapore is our top foreign investor. And we actually like Singapore. I think as one of my panelists mentioned, you have to prosper your neighbor, not just compete. So sometimes in some of the seminar, I think today got Singaporean here. I would say we are like brother, sister, sometimes fight a bit, but it's still a love. If people say love, hate, no lah, I would say more like love, hate little bit lah, like that. Macam sibling fight kan. But because they are there, so Singapore investment is in I would say a very nice portfolio of investment. So not just in manufacturing, they are also in education, in healthcare, and so forth. And that is a nice basket. But investment from China, I know you have heard of Forest Country Garden, all these R&F and whatnot. But actually for the past 3 years, there have been a lot of manufacturing inquiries coming in. Today, if you look at the industrial park player, they will say that, hey, they have signed deals with China, Chinese investor, because of the China plus one strategy. I think when China and US fight, we ask ourselves, are we the pelanduk di tengah-tengah when the 2 gajah bertembung, right? Are we the pelanduk, or we shall, pelanduk is very clever, so we must make use of these 2 elephants that fight. What are the opportunities we must identify? And that is a China plus one policy, as well as maybe we can say, I think from the panelists, maybe a Singapore plus one strategy as well. Because everyone know that the going prices, the property prices in Singapore is is rising tremendously. So that's why it become very attractive for people to actually stay in Malaysia or stay in Iskandar and work in Singapore, especially now that we have remote working, Zoom lah, dan lain-lain. So it doesn't need to go to Singapore. Or maybe you go when the traffic jam, like MB said, right, without concession, 30 minutes aja. So you make sure your timing is right. So these are the opportunity. And I think something that you have raised is how best we work with Singapore. Because this is opportunity. Whether gajah ke apa kan, this is opportunity because our neighbor is there. So actually, since 2007, there is actually the Joint Ministerial Committee for Iskandar Malaysia. This is a G2G platform. ILDA is the secretariat for that. So we are going to hold our 16 JMCIM meeting next month in Singapore. They join host. Sometime Malaysia will host, the next time Singapore will host. So this is where there are actually 6 work groups, one of which will look at actually industrial cooperation. And interestingly, maybe to share with Ganesh, there is actually an innovation work group. Last time used to be an iconic project work group that looks at, I think, the healthcare, I think the Glen Eagle, but that project have completed. So, and the innovation work group is something that we just rebrand, I think last year, on this same work group, and we're going to work closely with IE Singapore. I think the objective of that is look at how we can embrace the startup scene. As you have mentioned, there is a very strong VC fund in there, but why not here? And if you look at the unicorn, if you look at the Johor master plan as well, everyone talk about unicorn, cakap senang, but how to develop that talent stream. And I think Johor has that opportunity. Maybe he need more nurturing. We are not like Penang, but the elements are there. So maybe this is somewhere that we want to work together with everyone. So these are the numbers, our investment. And I just want to share maybe some of the pictures of the latest how you say, groundbreaking. I think besides Biocon, we have Oliver Healthcare. Of course, we have Insulet, I think Tinket have mentioned. And then we have Color Corn as well, not reflected here. So there is a growing cluster of healthcare investment over in Iskandar Putri area. So they will become neighbor to Biocon. And of course, there is groundbreaking for EcoCeres renewable fuel. I think this is on the airline, sustainable aviation fuel project. So this is also interesting project for Johor, and as well as I think the latest data center opening. In fact, today, this morning, Tengku Safro is in town. He is actually visiting Sedenak as well as Nusa Jaya to visit the data center. So if you look at what are the investment opportunity, actually when I think MB and Itinket mentioned about the 70 billion investment, 50 billion of investment Johor come from data center. So we like it or not, they are coming. And they are going to supply something like 1,000 megawatt of capacity. But also on the ground, when we talk to the people around, they are telling me, hey, Mrs. Gan, we got another 10, At least 5, 10 inquiry for investment in data center. But from ILDA perspective, I think we want to encourage the green data center. There's also concern area, I think, what type of talent they will bring. The numbers are very nice, but what kind of benefit will they take up all my electricity? What is my capacity? And whether we want fossil fuel, green, and so forth. So the next area that we look at opportunity is actually in the logistics area, in the aerospace. So this is something very new. I think under MITI, there is a national aerospace plan. I think today or this week, there is a Paris Air Show. My colleague is there under the auspicious of MITI to look at different opportunity. And Johor already have pocket of aerospace companies. GKN is one of them. Then you have others that may be a bit below the radar, not so publicly known, and maybe located dekat airport juga here. And then we look at modern farming. ILDA is actually going to complete the study on modern farming, looking at technology, how we can do improve the yield, how can we look at use of technology in farming itself. This is also for food security. Then healthcare, I think I mentioned what are the different companies that have come in, and they will form the cluster to attract more investment in the healthcare segment. So Johor, not just our hospitals, but we will have good different segment within the medical devices. And one of the other areas is actually the ecosystem of electric EV. So while people talk about Tesla, BYD and so forth, but Johor actually already started, I think someone, you have mentioned Handao, right? Yes. Handao actually have the, I think, electric bus. And then you have Sime tractors. They are doing, I think some of the tractors, they have also with electric vehicle. And we have actually from Iskandar Malaysia, ILDA, we have been receiving a lot of visits from China and other areas to do battery storage system. So this is the different sub area that we are looking at. And why EV is growing? Because we have a good E&E industry. So someone mentioned the renewable energy. I think Chancellor also mentioned the liberalization or the uplift of the moratorium of sale of renewable energy from Malaysia. I think this will be a very exciting time because I think 2 weeks ago, the Johor State Government have called for meeting and there will be a focus group discussion on that. So I will invite maybe some of the players because this morning I realized that there are already a biomass plant supplying thermal energy. So maybe most of people would think of solar, but there are other opportunity as well. So maybe this is just a snapshot of I think some of the incentives that MB have announced just now in the morning, some of the different area. Yeah, and I want to mention again, I think the Malaysia-Singapore, the Joint Ministerial Committee for Iskandar Malaysia. So I think moving forward for Iskandar Malaysia, the key message that I like to put forth is actually collaborative partnership. We have to work together. We all have, I think MB have an investment target for YB Lee. My revised comprehensive development plan have increased my investment target from 383 billion to 636 billion by 2030. So, but there are the opportunities here, and I think together, if we work together as one, let us, I think government itself must work on facilitating to make sure that to ease the cost of doing business for investors, whether DDI or FDI. Yeah, so thank you very much.
How many of you here, since day one this year, you have access of banking facilities? Any of you get the facilities from the bank? None. So this is the reason why Johor must have its own bank. For your information, I am one of the team members draft for the digital banking license from Bank Negara. Unfortunately, we didn't get, but that's not our fault. There's some reason behind. I will share when we have a one-to-one tea break. But basically, Johor with the ecosystem, with the infrastructure, with the talent, I believe we are on right track. We should have bank wakaf digital. Why wakaf? You know, historically, when we talk about wakaf, state of Johor always become the leader. That's why I said Johor will have the one and only bank wakaf digital. Inshallah, we are trying very hard, Tan Sri, actually. We are still working with Bank Negara, with MOF, with Prime Minister. Talking about bank wakaf digital, you know, yes, bank is a bank, but wakaf here, when we talk about bank, we always talk about cost of capital. Cost of capital coming from depositors' money. When it is a wakaf money, the cost of capital is almost zero. Therefore, we can provide financing at a very minimum cost. And I want to stress here, we have a lot of good people within Malaysia and outside Malaysia. They want to join and they want to provide for wakaf digital fund without any dividend, without any return. So we hope this will be the catalyst for further development of Johor. Secondly, you know, as a seasoned banker, from the day one I left Bank Negara, and because my exposure with LOPSA, what I envision one day, Johor will have its international financial center. So here I would like to propose again, Iskandar Malaysia will be gazetted. This is not in my dream. It's already discussed with LOPSA, discussed with MOF, discussed with Bank Negara. But it depends on the stakeholders in Johor State to look at and how it can be implemented soon. And I believe, trust me, if Iskandar Malaysia can be gazetted as International Financial Center, the year one, at least what I can forecast based on our feedback from our members, 10% of the fund, 10% of the player flocking into Iskandar Malaysia, occupy all the vacant, all the dying, sorry, is the word, all the dying, beautiful building. Yes, you can see, 388 billion invested for such a beautiful facilities. But it looks like if we don't do something drastic, we are going to bleed. And one day, tak ada batu nisan yang tinggal. So for this reason, please support us, especially Irda. I have discussed with Datuk Bat. I have discussed with Bawah Duli Yang Maha Mulia. Yes, insyaAllah. Yes. So on our group, we have the complete ecosystem, banking, finance, which our QM is financial group, investment. We are ready to fully mobilize. Tansi is here, Tansi Chin. We are ready to mobilize all the ecosystem to make sure that Iskandar Malaysia, to make sure that Johor will become the hub for not only Islamic, but the hub for banking and finance at this region. So for that matters, in order to achieve that goals, we have no choice, but we have to implement three things. The first, we must have smart partnership. And I would like to take this opportunity, Tansi Chair. Uh, Last Monday, the whole morning and afternoon, uh, KSI talked about SDG, ESG. So today, I would like to encourage everyone must embrace SDG, ESG, or else you will be left behind. Because nowadays, uh, yes, I agree with Tan Sri. Yes, globalization is not the things, but all about regional. But at the same time, if we are talking about regional, certainly we have to have, ESG, SDG are in place in our process. Otherwise, we cannot do business outside because the requirement, they will ask SDG reporting, they will ask sustainable reporting, they will ask ESG reporting. So at the same time, you want to encourage investors, strategic partners to come, invest in IRDA, invest in Johor. One of the requirements is whether are we comply with SDG or ESG or not. Certainly ESG, today we are talking about sorry, my words because of my stroke. I have certain words I cannot pronounce correctly. Environment, social governance. I would like to touch on governance because governance is actually the core. For your information, I'm one of the uh, advisor for Malaysian anti-corruptions. If you look at my LinkedIn, uh, on Monday afternoon, I spoke on behalf of Tan Sri Azam Baki on the MACC legal framework on how to combat money laundering and anti-corruptions in Malaysia. So what I share the journey was that, would you like to meet pemadam or pengasih? Which one you want? You want pengasih or pemadam? Pengasih. Yes. Both have functions the same to eradicate, to combat drug abuse. So similarly, my advice that has been shared with MACC, instead of we combating against the connotation, we are full of bribery, uh, we said no, don't talk about bribery, we talk about governance. So I would like to encourage, as for our group, yes, governance is the policy. Every day we'll talk about governance. So, of course, Tan Sri, talking about governance, we talk about financing, sustainability. So this is where, again, I would like to emphasize the Wakaf ecosystem, the social ecosystem. So 2 weeks ago, Governor of Bank Negara also launched on structure reform of the financing landscape. That's why today we talk about social finance. So Alhamdulillah, Johor will be the first in Malaysia if we got the bank wakaf, which is social in nature. The second part is about monetization. This is where, based on our experience, yes, in banking and finance, both locally and also abroad, onshore and offshore, we believe with this kind of expertise, we can help our members, whether in this floor or in Johor, we can help to monetize. Basically, when we talk about monetization, is in my term is financial engineering. So we are more than happy to assist. I'd like to ask here, can you imagine while we are waiting for the license, for your information, we have all the payment solution system in our group of company. We have implemented, we provide wakaf. We have wakaf mall, we have wakaf product, wakaf rack. Every month we contribute wakaf for the society. We also take care 76 orphanage home nationwide. So all the money partly we put aside for wakaf initiative. So would you like to experience banking without bank? So we have the payment system, we have the MasterCard, we have the e-wallet. So this is where use it for free. Our team is ready to assist the members here. So last but not least is all about captive. All this while we always look up people abroad, foreigner. They have the best system. They have the best in everything. Now I like to say here, no. These are all the talent. These are all the talent. Captive. We must sit down, synergize. So the talent we build, then the talent we eventually export to the whole world. Then we became Rahmatul Alamin. From Malaysia, not only product we export to the whole world, we export services, we export wakaf, we export everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mazlan for the, I would say, closing speech. You know. The organizers has been winking furiously as the next panel are ready. So unfortunately, we have to wrap up the session. But I think all the input given by our esteemed panelists, our 7 samurai, has, I think, triggered interest with new information, potential of the future, international hub, licensing, aspiring in Singapore, and all these nuggets of information, of knowledge, would not prevent you to stop. But please continue your conversation after this. We have several sessions. You can also engage with our esteemed panelists later during the lunch or the breakout session. So please do, and let's not end this, I would say, exchange of knowledge and information just for this session. So with that, please extend a warm thanks, applause to our panel. And I shall give way to the next team of panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, moderator.